Does anyone remember in Forrest Gump when Forrest met a young Elvis Presley and inspired his dance moves? Who would have thought that almost 30 years later, Tom Hanks would go on to play his manager? Hey movie buffs, I'm Jack Benner. Welcome to my review of Elvis. Elvis is a recent music biopic on Elvis Presley directed by Baz Luhrmann starring Austin Butler and Tom Hanks. This is the rise to fame story of Elvis Presley, played by Austin Butler, told from the perspective of his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, whom Elvis has had a complicated relationship with. Now, Elvis Presley is not only one of the most famous music icons of all time, but also an icon of history and entertainment. My mom liked Elvis, but my dad, however, despite him liking rock and roll, was actually not an Elvis fan. And I didn't listen to Elvis's songs all the time, but I did enjoy his music and understood his contribution to music. So I was curious to see how a music biopic on him would be done and hoping to learn more about him. My biggest concern for this film, however, was the director Baz Luhrmann. Now, he has directed the 1996 Romeo and Juliet movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, Moulin Rouge, Australia, and The Great Gatsby from 2013, also with Leonardo DiCaprio. And if you've seen any of those movies, you would know that he has a style, and he's a polarizing director. Do you either like his style or not? And I'm on the side, I am personally not a fan of Baz Luhrmann's style. I find it way too over the top, distracting, borderline obnoxious, and it just feels style over substance. That, and I was worried based on a trailer it would be another Bohemian Rhapsody, where I don't think Bohemian Rhapsody is a bad movie. I think it's a decently entertaining movie, but it did feel like another safe, predictable music biopic that did follow the formula. The trailers were interesting, and I was liking the lead, Austin Butler, who they picked to play Elvis. And I actually did see Elvis in theaters in July, but I unfortunately didn't have time to do a review. But I got the motivation and was ready to do a review now. What are my thoughts on Elvis? I am surprised to say I actually enjoyed Elvis more than I thought I would. Not without its flaws, to which I'll get to, but I found this to be a solid music biopic. Let's start with the pros. First, what truly carries this movie is Austin Butler as Elvis Presley. And I do remember him in the third act of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And I was quite surprised to see on his IMDb page that he was part of Nickelodeon and Disney Channel sitcoms back in the day. And he was also in that 2009 family movie, Aliens in the Attic. Anyone remember that movie? I do. But seriously, what I think was the biggest challenge for this movie was finding the right actor to play Elvis Presley. It could go one of two ways. In one hand, he could capture everything about Elvis. On the other hand, it could come off as an impression of Elvis. But after seeing this movie, Austin Butler did a fantastic job at playing Elvis Presley. In every scene when he first started performing and throughout the movie, he really embodied the role and gave it his all. From the voice, his singing, look, charm, fashion, the dance movements, and emotions of Elvis. I couldn't imagine any other actor pulling it off as well as he did. And I think this role really shows that he has a lot of talent and he's definitely a rising star. And I am hearing he is in the conversation right now for Best Actor nomination, and all I can say is I'll be very happy if he gets nominated for an Oscar for Best Actor. He truly deserves it. And he is going to be in Dune Part 2, which is my most anticipated movie next year. When he was first cast, I thought, okay, after seeing Elvis, I'm definitely excited to see him in Dune Part 2 next year. He's going to kill it in that movie. Curious to know if Austin Butler actually did all of his own singing or most of it, or if they found a way to mix Austin Butler singing and old recordings of Elvis. But either way, it was impressively done. Austin Butler has a great singing voice. And I actually do want to give credit where it's due with Baz Luhrmann's directing. Even if his flashy, over-the-top style is not really my cup of tea, I do admit when it comes to cinematography and set design, he knows how to make a gorgeous-looking movie. And Elvis is no exception. This is such a beautiful looking movie with the fantastic set design and costumes, gorgeous cinematography, color palette, and doing some unique scene transitions. But what I appreciated about his directing was in the second act, I felt like Baz Luhrmann just toned down his style and wanted to focus on the story more than just being flashy. That was definitely one of the aspects I appreciate about this movie that I felt like got better as it went along. I like it when Baz Luhrmann kind of tones down his flashy, over-the-top, and extravagant style, trying to create a more engaging story by focusing on the characters and the story. And another thing I really liked about Luhrmann's directing were the concert scenes. Whenever Elvis is performing and singing, he definitely knows how to make them very exciting to watch, making you feel like you're there just watching Elvis Presley sing and perform. And I admire this wasn't another typical music biopic, even though some of the cliches I feel like are there just to rise to fame, drugs and alcohol. But I didn't feel like the cliches bothered me too much in this movie. And I like that this tried to separate itself from other music biopics, I'd say similar to Rocket Man. And Tom Hanks as Colonel Tom Parker narrated this movie, so I found it interesting to see a music biopic told from the perspective of someone else. Sadly, I do have some flaws with this movie. I will get to those right now. First thing I was conflicted on with this movie, and I'm sad to say, Tom Hanks as Colonel Tom Parker. Now, I wouldn't go as far to say Tom Hanks gave a bad performance, but it did feel like an inconsistent performance to me. And I feel bad saying this because it's freaking Tom Hanks and he's one of my favorite actors, but I found this to be one of his weaker roles. On one hand, when he gets a chance to play a greedy and despicable person in certain moments in this movie, Hanks was doing a really good job. And there were definitely moments in this movie where you loathe Tom Parker, just the things he's done to Elvis. But on the other hand, just the voice, the accent, the look, and I kind of felt like Tom Hanks was a bit too over the top and cartoony at times during this movie, which kind of took me out of his performance a bit. And second, and probably my biggest problem with Elvis, this movie is way too long. This movie is 2 hours and 39 minutes long. Now, I actually didn't mind the pacing for the first act of this movie, but somewhere in the second and third act, I really did start to feel the length of this movie and was kind of feeling it was overstaying its welcome a bit. And at the beginning, there were times where Baz Luhrmann's style was a bit too much for me, and it did go over the top a little. And at the first half of this movie, I was like, I don't know about this. I really hope this gets better from here. But when Baz tones down this style, I feel like that's where the movie started to pick up for me, and I was starting to enjoy it more. And lastly, there were certain things that I felt like could have been explored more. I felt like there were a few things that were a bit rushed, like his relationship with Priscilla and his inspiration with black musicians that I felt like could have been explored more. In conclusion, despite its long runtime, some of the over-the-top style at the beginning which had me worried, and Tom Hanks' performance didn't always work for me, I found Elvis to be an entertaining music biopic with top-notch production, costume design, and cinematography, and most of all, an electrifying lead performance from Austin Butler as Elvis. If you haven't seen this movie and you are an Elvis Presley fan, definitely watch it. And I even feel like this movie is worth a chance even if you're not a fan of Elvis or Baz Luhrmann's style. This movie is streaming on HBO Max and it's going to be coming out on Blu-ray and DVD sometime in September. I'll put the release date right here. So either way you have access to watch Elvis, I do think it's worth a chance. And again, definitely watch it for Austin Butler's performance. He knocked it out of the park. And now to grade it, I'm going to give Elvis 3.5 stars out of 5. A B. This movie was much better than Bohemian Rhapsody. Although I wouldn't say it's as good as Rocket Man, I felt like that movie was more unique, emotionally engaging, and I felt like brought more to the table with music biopics. But I do think this is another impressive one. Even though this movie came out towards the end of June, what are its Oscar chances? I don't particularly see it as a Best Picture nominee. I don't see it getting nominated, nor do I see Tom Hanks getting in for supporting actor. I feel like his performance might be too divisive. And I do think its strongest chances would be Austin Butler for Best Actor, costumes, makeup, maybe a sound design. So I'm curious to see how this movie does at the Oscars next year. So I'd like to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on Elvis? Did you agree, disagree with my review? Or if you haven't seen it, are you looking forward to the film or not? Let me know below. Did you enjoy hearing my thoughts on this movie? If yes, please hit that like and subscribe button if you're new here. And don't forget that notification bell for my next upload. It really means a lot. And until the next video, I'm Jack Benner and look forward to another movie review.